The Baylord brothers, some of the most interesting characters not just introduced in Season 3, but honestly in the entire story of Tower of God. Doom, Yama, and Paul. You've got the oldest brother, the middle brother, and the younger brother, each one of them super interesting in their own right. But today I want to talk about the history behind these brothers, how it connects to the main story now, because I really think we're gonna get more of this going forward, like with all this Nest stuff and Yama, so I think it's good to just understand what exactly went down with the Baylord family and the Lo Po Bia family. So let's start with Yama's father. This man is very mysterious, but we do know a few things about him from Yasratcha and Doom, mostly from Doom. We hear a lot about this father from Doom's fight with Dekoko, because Dekoko was saying, oh, your father's a traitor, and Doom said no. So this information is from Doom, basically from his perspective, so there could be some details that are left out, but this is what we know. Basically, Doom, Yama, and Paul's father was created by the workshop. So that's the first thing. The workshop. Why is it always the workshop? Speaking of which, after this video, you can watch my video on the workshop by clicking the card. They're up to some crazy stuff, let's just say that. Basically, he was this canine creation who in turn could create other canine people, which is very similar to Doom's ability, which I'll get into in more detail here soon, but basically, he could create canine people, and these canine people were very loyal to their father, but for some reason or another, Yama's father ended up becoming basically an honorary, sort of shadowed member of the Lo Po Bia family. He basically ended up becoming the family head's servant. He ended up doing everything and anything that he told him to do, and he obeyed his orders without question. He basically swore an oath of loyalty, which we don't know why. Like, why did he do that? I'm assuming it has to do with maybe the Lo Po Bia family head rescued him from the workshop, or maybe just the workshop created him for the Lo Po Bia family head. Which, fun fact, the reason I'm saying Lo Po Bia family head, he's the only family head who we don't know his actual name, so there you go. But basically anything that the Lo Po Bia family needed to be done, any dirty work, anything undercover, right? The canine race did it for him, led by Yama's father. Because if you did it with one of your other, because the Lo Po Bia family has 20 branches, if you sent one of the branches, you can trace the roots back. It's very clear that the Lo Po Bia family's behind it. But the canine people, first of all, were disposable, but second of all, also they operated in the shadows. But because of this, they were never acknowledged as an actual branch of the family. They were sort of like this honorary, well, not even honorary, right? That's even too much. They were like a 21st branch, but not really. They were sort of the branch that no one talked about and everybody ignored. They were treated like a cursed race. Those are Doom's words, right? Sort of a race that doesn't really exist. They were treated poorly, the mutts, right? They were treated like the mutts. And yet, Yama's father stayed ever loyal to the family head, never even getting angry, never baring his fangs, right? He obeyed without question. He never even insulted him, talked behind his back. He was a loyal dog. Doom even says that his father was proud that he was able to serve him, which only makes me further question why, My theory is that perhaps the Lo Po Bia family had rescued him from the workshop. That's one option, or like I said before, maybe he was built for that. I don't want to say built for that because, when you're created by the workshop can create life. We've talked about that before. And, Yama's father is another example of this. It doesn't necessarily mean you're programmed. It doesn't mean you're an artificial life form necessarily. They're able to create straight life. There's no real difference between this and that. It's life. It's life one way or another. But then apparently something happened, and the root of the problem, of course, was Yasratcha. Yasratcha told a bunch of lies. Sooner or later, the whole family was against, Yama's father. I wish we had a name for this guy, but Yama's father is what I'll keep calling him, and they ended up branding him a traitor. They said that he deserved to die, we gotta execute him, he's a traitor, he's a liar. None of it was true. We don't know what Yasratcha told them, but he somehow convinced them that Yama's father was a spy or working behind the scenes to undermine the family, right? When in actuality, he only ever served the family. It's very tragic. Yama's father trusted in the Lo Po Bia family head, but ultimately, they got their wish. They killed him, and they mocked his life, and his trust in the family was wasted. And yet I know that being so loyal, he never once got angry. You know what I mean? Like, it's sad to think about, but that's how it is. Like, I'm assuming SIU is doing this thing where he's like relating Yama's father to like the most loyal dog you could ever have. And no matter what's gonna happen, that dog is gonna be loyal to you despite everything. It's very tragic, but that is exactly what's happening here. But before he got killed, he took aside his 3 children, well, particularly Doom, because Yama and Paul were too young at the time. Paul was legit like a baby, and Yama was like too young to understand anything. Doom was the one who took charge. He told Doom to escape with them, to get out of there, because he knew it was gonna happen. He had a feeling, and so they escaped. Doom with his 2 little brothers, you know, getting out of there. But what's really interesting is that this power that Yama's father had to create canines, that is Doom's power, right? Doom has this ability. That's the whole plot of like the cage and stealing the fang, is that Doom is able to create canines. Now, this also ties into Yasratcha, because apparently Yasratcha was the one who gave that ability to Doom's father. So it's all connected. We don't entirely know why. And perhaps maybe there is more out there and I just didn't find it. I tried to, you know, find these old conversations, but ultimately, from what I understand, there is a connection between Doom, Doom's father, and Yasratcha, but we don't entirely know what it is. We do know, okay, Yasratcha gave the father the power for some reason, or shared his power, and this is why Yasratcha is able to control them, etc., etc. Okay, so that's the history of it. Doom ended up gaining this ability. Then, of course, the whole canine war happened, and Yama didn't like the way Doom was treating the canine people. Doom was someone who, he's a very good leader, right? But he's also someone who is willing to make unnecessary sacrifices. Like, he would kill canines just like that because he had this mentality that it didn't really matter. You know, they weren't true canines. Because the only true canines, all right, let's break this down. The only true canines are Doom, Paul, and Yama, and their father. There's the canine lords, who basically are humans who can be transformed into canines, right? They're the human-looking canine people. They are able to breed. And that's how the canine race grew, because Doom, Yama, and Paul cannot breed. Then there's the mutts, who are like, they're humans who were transformed, but they weren't powerful enough, so they're like low-tier canine people, right? They're able to breed as well. And then the combat dogs. The combat dogs are the reason that Thug wants the canines. The combat dogs are mindless killers. They'll do whatever you say. They're not sentient, right? They're basically like machines that you can tell what you want them to do and all that stuff. That's the main reason why Thug wants the canine people. And of course, they all have this power of transformation, some more than others. Yama is the only one who's able to go like complete transformation, and even then, we haven't even seen complete transformation. I know this is confusing, but Yama went complete transformation mode, but he's at like 0% of that mode, right? We've seen him do his arm and other parts of his body. Okay, so I guess that's like 5-10%, but we haven't seen him actually go like 100% of that mode. So really interesting stuff. I bet you he transforms into an actual beast. That'd be awesome. But then yeah, the canine war happened. Yama didn't like the way that Doom treated, you know, those canines, and he would just kill them without even thinking about it. So there was a war, and Yama defeated Doom and Paul. But obviously he had to keep Doom around because of his power, so he ended up taking out his heart, locking him up, banishing Paul, and basically used that to further their species. And of course, that led to current events. And we sort of know what happened there. I'm not gonna like go into super detail about what's happening now, but essentially there was the war in season 3 between the canine people. You had Paul's faction, who were trying to bring back Doom. You had Yama's faction of people who were very loyal to Yama. It's a great story of how Yama went from being a loner to a leader. You know, he's really not a leader, but he learned to be, because his love for his people surpassed that of being a loner, right? Which is just great. But of course, they ended up working together. Yama and frickin' Doom and Paul, dude, these names, I swear. They're working together now, and they agreed Yama's the leader. Yama's the leader. We have bigger problems to worry about right now, most likely because they, you know, the whole thing with their father got brought back out of the shadows and out of what happened before. And so that's the main problem. Like, that's the thing they're trying to address. They've realized that their petty little war doesn't matter anymore because they're brothers, you know, which is pretty dope. So now Doom and Paul are like Yama's subordinates. They're his right and left hand pretty much, and they're fighting in the nest right now. So that's the main history. Now, one thing that I also wanted to add on to this is that what's super cool is that this didn't used to be the history. You know how SIU likes to talk about other characters who haven't shown up, or the history of the tower, the family heads? He likes to drop these like tidbits. He used to do this especially back in the day. And he basically created this backstory for Yama a long time ago, and this backstory was very different from the one that we have now. Essentially, Yama was like a legit villain back in the day, and he was this guy who was trained as a, you know, pit bull or a mutt in the Baylord, right? Or Baylord. It's confusing, but he like killed his master and like etc, etc. He had this whole system where Yama ended up like toppling the government of this Baylord, and he became the leader, and he set up like this crazy stuff, and he became this leader of evil, kind of. He would ship entertainment facilities, create entertainment facilities, and start these like trade industries that were like doing shady stuff, and you know, you could see it throughout the tower, and like apparently no one ever saw his face. And there was this history that SIU scrapped, because Yama was known as the Lord of the Dead, and that is very different from what we know of Yama now. And Baylord itself was like this place where the mutts were trained and the mad dogs. That was also very much changed. That's now more like the cage. Like maybe Baylord still exists, you know? Maybe it does. Maybe that's where the mad dogs are created, but it's not true that Yama was one of these mad dogs that like battled his way out of Baylord and became the leader. Like that was all scrapped. The whole thing about him becoming this evil leader who started all these shady stuff that's happening, I don't want to get too specific, you know, doing all these things, that's not true. SIU changed that, and I'm glad, because it made it a lot more interesting. We went into this thinking Yama was gonna be bad, but there's so much more going on. It's so much more complicated. They're like real characters. I'm sure Yama would have been cool as the Lord of the Dead, but it's even cooler that there's this history there, a history that we're still learning about, and it means that like there's this good and bad side to them. I really like it. This is so much more interesting what we got, and I can see why SIU changed it. But yeah, overall, I'm sure we'll get more information on that going forward, especially with like the blood transfusions with the mad dogs, because if you remember, Baragov was not affected by Yasratcha's mind control. So it's like, why, you know? Because he's blood mixed. So I think he's blood mixed. That's a word I never thought I'd say. So we'll see what happens there. I'm sure they'll figure out how to counter Yasratcha's mind control with that information. But overall, thanks for watching, guys. What did you find most interesting about this information? The Baylord brothers and their father and Yasratcha and all this stuff. I think it's really, really cool. It's one of the highlights of season 3 for sure. I just love the canine people. Their designs are so unique and so epic, bro. I just love the creativity that went into these designs. So anyway, thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. Patrons, you guys freaking rock. Actually, this video was suggested by a patron, one of the high rankers of the tower, Syed Masood. Thank you so much for this video suggestion. I finally got to it, and I was really excited to work on it. So thank you for that suggestion. Syed is actually a king of the tower, which is the highest tier of patron you can be. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it. All right, and with that, I'll see you guys in my next Tower of God lore video. Take care.